The biggest T20 tournament that comes around annually is about to kick off. We will preview each team. I've written them, as I always do, in alphabetical order. It works well for my OCD brain.
By location?
Yes, by location. And luckily there's no the. There's no the Super Kings. They all have a city or state attached to them.
Damn it. I've been really wanting to find new names of places that are just out there.
Anyways, we'll start with the Super Kings from Chennai. They finished 9th last year, pretty underwhelming, only won 4 games. However, they spent big on Ben Stokes. We've seen how good he's been in captaining the English team through the red ball format. It's a strong sort of Kiwi flavour about the Super Kings. Stephen Fleming is their coach. They've got Devon Conway, Mitch Santner, Cole Jamieson. Obviously, all 3 of them won't play at the same time. Given the IPL's rules for having 4 international players in each team only, that will be a big focus of the upcoming preview for anyone that's sort of just getting into the IPL or is maybe a bit more of a casual IPL fan. Each team has a plethora of internationals that they can choose from. However, you can only start 4, so it makes the way that you choose a team on the night. It puts some demands on that, and it's kind of one of the fun talking points, really. We see a lot of players coming back. The ageless MS Dhoni is going to skipper them again at the age of 41. Jadu, he's pretty good given what we've seen this summer.
I think at 41, if you're still getting $1.4 million, it's good reason.
That's US too. Yeah. All these prices that we'll talk about, they are US dollars. So you can add a little bit of mayo if you're listening down here in Australia. Unfortunately for our Indian listeners, I haven't got the crores and the lakhs there. I've already done the calculations to bring them over to currencies that sort of make sense to us. So apologies, you'll have to do the inverse. Their top order looks pretty good. It looks like Devon Conway might get a gig. Ruturaj Gaikwad, Ambati Rayudu, and then that man Ben Stokes, nearly a $2 million US man. And then the middle order is fucking hot as well. Shivam Dubey, Moeen Ali, MS Dhoni we've spoke about, Jadu. And then the big man to talk about was Deepak Chahar, who was injured for most of the IPL last year. He's raking in about 1.7 mil US. But the bottom 2 in Chowdhury and Thikshana, the spinner from Sri Lanka, not on big money. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because Cole Jamieson is injured for the foreseeable future. They do have the likes of Ajinkya Rahane, Dwayne Pretorius, and others there. For each of these teams, I've put a strength and a weakness. I think the strength, we've spoken about that batting depth, and it's kind of similar to the Indian Test team, when you've got the likes of Jadu
Jadu,
or someone like Moeen Ali, that might bat as low as 7.
Yep,
it's pretty scary
just keep batting deep.
For other teams. Look, they were disappointing last year. 9th, there was a few sort of strange results last year with them and Mumbai playing pretty poorly.
Yeah.
I think on paper they don't look too bad. I think depth could be a little bit of an issue if they do have a few injuries.
What's their pace like? I think that's the only question I kind of had on this.
Yeah, well, with Jamieson out, it's going to really depend on Deepak Chahar. And how he goes
back as well.
Coming back this year. Their spin options are pretty good with Jadeja and Thikshana. Chowdhury, he had to take the brunt of it last year when Chahar was
bowl his mids.
And Stokes, that's a good point there. That's a good point. Stokes might be able to fill in and bowl your 3-4 overs here or there.
He's no Jamieson. It's kind of what I was getting at. They might lack that type of quick bowler.
I think it's a good point. With Jamieson being injured, I'm not sure how long he will be injured for, and that'll be a common theme for these previews. Is there's a lot of injuries going into the tournament. They probably do lack that genuine, scary kind of quick.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a bottom 2 team. I think they played a little bit unders, a little bit disappointing last year.
Well, I think that's with the IPL, it's very hard to separate and say these guys are going to be bad because the amount of teams and the amount of talent that they can bring in. They're talented across the board. It just depends on who wins when they show up and play. So, Super Kings and the Indians just had a bad run of it last year. They can completely flip that script this year.
Dude, it's a good point because you look at, say, the EPL at the start of the year and you're like, oh, well, there's 3 teams that can win this.
Yes.
The IPL is the complete opposite. Like, it's the worst thing to do a prediction for because it's so up in the air. Cricket as a sport, especially in T20 format, is so up in the air. And then you've got teams that all buy players from an auction. There's a salary cap involved. It's very, very unpredictable. The spread of all these teams from the bookies is 6-1 to 12-1.
Yeah.
So everyone's sort of there or thereabouts.
Yes.
Wow.
We will be bold and we'll try and make a few predictions. I think the Super Kings will be better than they were last year. I think they miss out on the top 4.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to judge until I had a look at some of the other ones. We have personal investment in the Capitals doing well.
Yep.
And we'll get to them in a second. I think looking at that list, especially with the likes of Dadu and Ben Stokes in it, that they should compete on a regular basis.
So Kyle Jamieson is gone for the entire season.
Yeah, seems like he's
not part
pulled
of
himself out of the entire IPL.
That's pretty big. They bring in
that's their big
South African pacer Sisanda Magala. Haven't heard too much of him, so that really puts the pressure on Chaha and Chowdhury and whoever comes in to replace Kyle Jamieson. There, well, probably Chowdhury is the like for like. It's going to be hard without some depth through their quicks. Yep. You do look at that middle order and you think, well, if we've got to go out there and chase 220, maybe they can do it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. Just put up bulk runs and
you prefer not
don't
to.
worry about it.
You prefer to defend.
There's a few teams that we'll look at where it's like, oh, wow, their batting stocks are unreal, but it's a bit so-so on the bowlers.
Yeah.
Talking about that team that we do have personal investment in, we've all become Delhi Capitals fans on the podcast over the last couple of years. Very privileged to talk with the Delhi Capitals and their media team, hoping to do that again this IPL. And the biggest story really is their skipper, their most expensive player, if he were to play, Rishabh Pant, having that horrible car accident a few months ago. Still recovering. He won't play a single game. It's line through Rishabh. By all reports, recovering okay, but it was a nasty car accident that he had. So that beckons the question, who's going to get the gloves? They've got Phil Salt, but the international aspect of the game, they'll have to drop one of the current internationals in their best 4 to get Salty in there. I think Sarfaraz Khan might get the nod moving forward. He's currently got a finger injury. How deep they go with keepers, I've got no idea. It's going to be interesting to see how they actually line up next weekend. But obviously it's a gaping hole left by Rishabh Pant. If Pant was healthy and our sort of personal bias aside, I actually think they might be the best team in the comp.
Yeah. Well, we've seen what Mitch Marsh did recently against the Indians, winning the series for us in the one-day game. So he looks like he's in a bit of form. David Warner maybe struggling a little bit, but it looks like great. That side, Delhi Capitals, I think, we even said the same last year. They've got a good, well-rounded side with a lot of good top order and quicks and, Patel, etc. can turn the ball, but same point. They'll be competitive. It's just whether they can take that leap to the next one.
Well-rounded is a good sort of
one caveat on that is
evaluate them.
Bison had a pretty terrible IPL last year, didn't he?
He didn't play the first bit, and then
got COVID, didn't he?
Yeah, had COVID. I don't think it was terrible. Can you get up some Delhi Caps numbers from last year?
I think he was, he didn't miss the first couple games. Then was a slow kind of starter, and Delhi Capitals by that point were, batting at 500 and finished the season that way. So, and he was on big money, so I think that was probably more the reasoning there. But hopefully, that season's in behind him in the rearview mirror, and he'll come out and continue the elite form that he's had. Concerning the one-day World Cup's coming up too.
But we've seen how good Mitch Marsh, the Bison, can be on his day. look, he didn't break any records last year, but he still had 251 runs through his 8 games, and staying healthy is gonna be a big sort of caveat next to his name. Davey Warner had a great comeback year for Delhi last year, scoring 432 runs, averaging 48. But a lot has been spoken about his form for Australia recently. We've spoken about it on this podcast. He may have in the back of his mind as well, am I going to be opening in the Ashes?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because he batted 5th, didn't he, in that one day?
4th, 4th. I was trying to remember the last time that I saw David Warner bat in the middle order. I don't think it's happened. I can't remember it happening.
I don't think it's happened because he came from T20 as a a guy that could hit quickly. So it was like, hey, let's put him in the opener and see if he can see off that new ball and hit it around when it's hard. I can't say I've ever seen Davey Warner bat anywhere else but about opening. So it was weird to see that he'd come back. He's come back from his fractured thumb,
elbow. I think
elbow. That's right. There's so many fingers in the other boys. I couldn't remember which one.
10, some might say.
Coming back from the elbow and then getting just thrown in there 5th, and then he scored 30?
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I think that was kind of the exception to the rule. I think Davey Warner will be opening with Prithvi Shaw.
Oh, in this? Yeah, definitely.
And I think his IPL form is, you've got to pay more attention to the way that he's played in the IPL. Obviously, before coming back to Delhi, a lot was spoken about that year at Sunrisers in 2021.
It's more politics than...
It was politics. It was lacklustre, really, each time he was out there. But one of the most prolific run scorers in IPL history. And obviously, as Aussies and Delhi Capitals fans, we're pretty invested in the ball going out there and scoring some runs.
Yeah, great.
Let's look.
He's only batted 3 times outside of the top 2 in his entire Test career.
And that's why we've got the fastest research man when he's on his game in the Southern Hemisphere.
Can you give us a rundown of those 3?
Oh, geez. He batted 6 back in 2013 and batted 3rd 2013-2016 for 2 matches in that span. In that cricket. Test cricket.
So I remember that.
He scored, 39 runs in those tests. So in those 3 tests, so pretty unrememberable tests for him, I suppose.
I don't know if that's a word.
Unrememberable? It is now.
Forgettable. As per this correlation between David Warner's middle order batting in Test cricket to the way that he will play in this IPL, I think he opens, and it's going to be interesting though. How does he perform given sort of the external pressure outside of the IPL? In terms of the Australian media and his future.
I feel like it'll be a big relief. It's not the Australian media that's coming after him, and he's loved there at Delhi. So I think
he's a big deal there.
Yeah, so I think it'll be more weight off his shoulders and maybe just play his natural game, have fun with it, and enjoy himself.
He's all right batting at 4th in T20.
What's his record there, Jimmy?
Why are we talking about this?
I don't know.
He's bringing it up.
What is it?
We'll move on.
What was the average of?
He averaged
40.
You can't blue balls like that, Jimmy.
It wasn't 40. It was better than. It was 33 was his highest, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
The middle order. Speaking of the middle order, if there's any sort of question marks around this Delhi Capitals team, it might be this middle order. They did bring in Manish Pandey to try and bolster that a little bit. It looks like it might be Lalit Yadav and Sarfaraz Khan might get the gloves. And then the bowlers, I think a really good, well-rounded bowling unit. Akshar Patel, we've seen how pesky he can be as Australian fans. He was actually their 6th highest run scorer in the last tournament. He only got out 4 times. He averaged 45 with the stick. He's going to bat probably 6 or 7, and then gives you that spinning option. And then Anik Nortje, probably the only South African who came down under and really sort of instilled a bit of fear in the Aussies in the past summer. And then Kuldeep Yadav, the left arm Chinaman. We can say it. He'll pick himself, and then how does the rest of the team line up? I think the Fizz Mustafizur Rahman from Bangladesh gets a gig, but that means it will limit what they can do in terms of internationals above him. He's very handy with the ball. Can you click on their bowling stats from last year, if you wouldn't mind, Max?
Well, I think Warner, Marsh, and Nortje were all players. So if he's the fourth, then that's it might limit their options a little bit.
Well, it comes back to the keeper as well. Like, will they need to use that on Phil Salt? They've got Riley Rosu and Lungi Ngidi as well for South Africans. So that may sort of play into the Fizz getting a gig. He played half of their games last year. Nortje also limited last year, but that was through injury and not lack of selection. And Kuldeep Yadav, he's up there with one of the best spinners in the Indian Premier League. He had 21 poles, averaging 19 last year. I think it's a pretty well-rounded team.
Yeah, I agree.
Prediction-wise, obviously, we're Delhi Capitals fans. I've got them top 2. That might be a little bit bullish, but if you wanted to hear my honest opinion, I think if they miss the top 4, it'd be a real disappointment.
Yeah, like they did last year. I think they should be in the 4 playing finals.
Let's go to last year's winners in the Gujarat Titans. First year, don't care, go out and win the whole thing. They won 10 games in the regular season and then brought the whole thing home. They do bring in Kane Williamson and the Irishman, Josh Little. It's interesting bringing in such a big name such as Kane Williamson. I don't know if he will actually be in their best 4 internationals.
I think he's more depth. I don't think he's not that well known as a T20 hitter.
He's pretty he's much like Smudge. When it comes to T20, can really go out there and make a...
He's an elite stick, so you'd
make a lot of runs, but he's probably not going to go out there and strike at 160 like a lot of these guys do. The way that I've sort of lined up this likely 11 is having Kane Williamson in there. I think Matt Wade played a pretty good role for Gujarat last year. I think he has to open the batting with Shubman Gill, and then I've got Kane Williamson. David Miller, one of the most destructive sticks in the IPL, followed by our boy Hardik Pandya, who'll captain the team, Rahul Tewatia, and then into I think, sort of mediocre bowling lineup outside of Rashid Khan. Mo Shami is going to have to sort of carry these quicks. Yash Dayal does a bit, but that sort of rolls us into the strengths and weaknesses. I don't know if that's the best bowling lineup getting around in the IPL. Strength-wise, you look at that middle order.
Well, I think they've
1 through 6, really.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think their bowling, they've put all their cookies in one basket here and gone with Rashid Khan as, he's going to have to do a lot of work for them, how well he does is probably how well this team will do.
And you can do that. Like you see perennially throughout whichever competition he's in. Rashid Khan, he's put the strikers on his back for years. He was 8th last year in wickets.
Sammy there was 6th.
But look at his economy. So he's 8th for wickets. Okay, cool. Look at his economy, 6.59. Everyone above him is 8s, 7s, and 7, 8, 9. People cannot hit him out of the attack ever. And it doesn't matter if it's in India, it doesn't matter if it's at Adelaide Oval. You give him the ball, he's going to go bowl 4 overs and go for 25, and that's 4 overs where you say, okay, maybe the rest of our bowling attack, which isn't loaded with these super scary name-based quicks, maybe outside of Mo Shami, he literally can win you games as a leg spinner in T20 cricket.
I agree.
Would like to see Josh Little get a gig. They paid a bit of money for him. The most high-profile Irishman to ever play in the IPL. We'll talk about this series in a second because there's a team with a few Bangladeshis. But Bangladesh and Ireland, they scheduled a series right at the start of the IPL. You'd think as a Bangladeshi or an Irishman, if you're going to go get some bickies playing in the IPL, you'd probably prefer to do that. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a second. I think they'll back up again well from last year. I think legitimate top 2 chance. The bookies have got them as the shortest price at 6-1. I think much like Delhi, and probably even more so on paper, would be highly, highly disappointed from missing the top 4.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with depth, middle order, hitting, and, of course, the Khan.
Kolkata Knight Riders finished 7th last year. They won 6 games, lost 8. They've probably been the team that's gone under the biggest reshuffle. It wasn't a super auction this time round, so you remember back to the auction before this year, there was a lot of reshuffling, whereas most of the teams line up reasonably similarly to last year. Kolkata probably the exception to the rule. A lot's going to sort of depend on Shreyas Iyer. Monks, if you wouldn't mind searching for the latest news on him. He's got a back injury. It looks like Nitish Rana will most likely get the nod for the skipping role. It may be for a good chunk of the IPL. They do bring in the Lord have mercy, Lord Shardul Thakur. He comes over from the Delhi Caps. He is an elite all-rounder. Not the best bowler in the IPL, but can get through his 4 overs and can go out and score bulk runs batting 7 or 8. Talking of Bangladeshi, so they do have Shakib Al Hassan and Liton Das. How they fit into this team, probably only one of them will get in as their best 4 internationals. Shakib, he's one of the most controversial figures in world cricket. Had that lengthy layoff with match fixing and the rest of it, and definitely not one to mince his words. And like I spoke about that Ireland series, they may miss a few games through that. From an Aussie perspective, no Pat Cummins this IPL with the passing of his mother, and Aaron Finch retiring from international T20 cricket. And then Lockie Ferguson, he returns after winning the comp with the Titans last year, also injured. So a lot of sort of reshuffling over there at the Knight Riders. Sam Billings was there last season. He's going to be focusing on red ball. So there's a lot of sort of question marks around who will get the keeping nod. I think it will be Narayan Jagadeesan in terms of saving your internationals. I think he'll get the nod. I don't know too much about him. Leighton Das obviously is the Bangladeshi keeper and plays pretty well for Bangladesh. I think he may miss out for Jagadeesan. Depending on the availability of Shreyas Iyer. Monks, have you got anything on that?
Yeah, a couple reports. One said that he may miss at least the first half. Another one saying that he's set to sit out the whole season. I suppose obviously his main concern is being able to participate in the World Test Championship.
Yeah.
So I think it, by all accounts, sounds like he's not electing to have surgery just yet, probably because of that. But yeah, I suppose it's just going to be a developing story and a probably massive headline throughout the IPL.
Can you check Lockie Ferguson's hammy for me? Because perhaps as you read through this, if for all the teams we've looked at so far, this is the one that's got the most question marks or concerns leading into it. Yes, they've got the big Dre Rush, as their kind of main hitter, but outside of that, then you start thinking about well, who else is going to score them runs if Iyer's out hurt as well? And the pace tack looks good, but again, if Ferguson's going to miss a bunch of time too, they just it causes worry. Causes worry for me here. And if I was going to look at any team so far that we've looked at this and go, oh yeah, they're probably going to be no good, it would be these guys.
Yeah, I'm concerned. That said, we've spoken about the unpredictable nature of cricket. Watch us go out there and bag them, and they go and do well.
Win the comp, yeah.
It's
done.
It's going to be a big prove-it moment for Nitish Rana, who may get the captaincy, but also Venki Iyer, Jagadeesan. Someone at the top of the order has to step up when Shreyas isn't there and score runs. I do like that middle order. Dre Russ, he's on $1.5 million US. Whether it be Shakib that comes in there, the Lord Shardul, and then maybe one of the best economy off spinners in the IPL in Sunil Nareen. I don't mind that middle order whatsoever. We will talk a lot about quicks and their availability, and then the backup. Tim Southey, not a bad replacement for Lockie Ferguson. Doesn't hit the same clicks as what Lockie Ferguson does. But yeah, I agree. I do look at that list and I start having a few concerns, given the injuries, given the reshuffling. I've got them bottom 2 this year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a fair assessment on what we know now currently this week. Did you get an answer on Ferguson down the end there?
He's not starting. I think they're still assessing to work out.
And it's hamstring.
If or when.
Did I see?
Yeah, hamstring.
So you wouldn't think he'd miss the whole tournament from a hamstring?
Grade in tall fellas that run in and bowl quick. Not something you really want them to have.
No.
Can be problematic.
Would prefer it to say back stress fracture or there's worse things, silver linings, etc.
Yeah, pinky finger.
This one also says that Al Hassan and Das will both be playing in that Bangladesh Island series.
When does that finish? Is there a finish date on that?
Starts tomorrow, finishes on the 31st of March. IPL starts 31st of March.
So they'll miss the first game, maybe 2.
First game. Yeah.
Okay. That's not too bad.
When is their first game? Because there's one or 2 games on the 1st on April Fools, and then
I think that's our time. I think the first one starts Friday the 31st.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah.
First game Friday 31st.
Is Gujarat and Chennai.
So when's their first game? Was my question.
It'll be next weekend.
We're talking about again.
Night Riders. It's the next day. It's Saturday.
Yeah.
It's Saturday.
So potentially they could make it, but private jet.
Yeah, I think they'll miss 1 or 2, but it's not too bad. Let's look at the other new franchise from last year, the Lucknow Super Giants. Again, sort of exceeded expectation last year, finishing 4th. Spent big on bringing in Nicholas Pooran, 27-year-old Trinidadian. That he will bolster their batting stocks. A few West Indians sort of about this. We've got the West Indian little singlet up there, but Jason Holder, he goes to Rajasthan. Looking at them, very strong at the top. KL Rahul, Quinton de Kock, Deepak Hooda, Nicholas Pooran, our boy, the Stoin, the Greek freak, and then Krunal Pandya. That top to middle order looks very, very good. Bowling stocks, maybe not as strong, but also no slouches in Badoni, Bishnoi, Avesh Khan, Moshin Khan, and they bring in Mark Wood. I think depth-wise, their sticks are pretty good. Their top order is elite. It's a lot of pressure for Ravi Bishnoi. He's 22. He's not a slouch, but he's going to have to be their go-to spinner. If I had to pick a weakness, it might be their spinning depth.
Yeah. Who were their 4 internationals, you think, at De Kock, Poirier, Stein, and Wood?
Yes. Yeah. So I actually, out of, because a lot of them are kind of like who's their best 4 internationals. I feel like with Lucknow, it's probably those 4 in Quinton, in Pooran, in Stoinis, and Mark Wood. I think they're the clear cut best 4.
Would Sams be your 5th?
Yeah, Dan Sams might be there.
Sorry, not Smith. Sams.
Sam Smith.
Yeah.
He's been in the news recently for ones and zeros chats. I also think their Indian depth is quite good. Like you look at Krishnapa Gautam, Amit Mishra. I think depth wise, it's a pretty good team. I don't think they're quite on that level as a Gujarat or a Delhi Capitals, but I think they'll definitely be there or thereabouts for the top 4.
Yeah, I just, that weakness you point out there of spin in India, trying to keep run rates low, is a risky strategy. That's the way I think of that. So I'd be maybe a little bit concerned for them, but they're going to have these young fellas have to stand up and do a job for them.
I'd love to see a big breakout tournament for the Stoin with bat and ball. He's back bowling, opening the bowling for the Aussies in white ball cricket. That's good signs for him and the way that his back's holding up. I'd love to see Big Puppy Stoin go out there and be one of the genuine all-rounders in the IPL this year. Our bookies have them at 8-1. I think they push for that top 4. I'm not going nuts on the table. I'm going to be a real fence sitter and think they'll be right around that 4th, 5th, 6th.
Yep.
That's fair. I think that point we made, if those spinners guys like Stein that can play a bit overs, then they're a top 4. But if not, then they can slide out.
Let's talk about possibly the biggest name in the IPL in terms of franchises, the Mumbai Indians. Disappointment is an understatement. Last year, they only won 4 games. They came dead last. It's going to be a rebuild year in terms of Jasprit Bumrah being unavailable, their marquee quick, and also Jai Richardson, the Aussie, to miss a bit of time. They spent big on Cameron Green, which I think we shouted him a beer.
Yes, we did.
Going out there and being the highest paid Aussie in the IPL this series. That's a lot of pressure for a young man who is reasonably unproven in T20 cricket as a whole, let alone in the IPL, to go out there and command over $2 million. That top order is so strong with the likes of Rohit Sharma and Ishan Kishan and Sky coming in there at 4. They do have a new coach, so Mark Boucher comes in to replace Mahela Jayawardena. That does give a South African flavour to the Mumbai Indians. They've got baby AB, the 19-year-old Devold Brevis, who really burst onto the scene last year. I think he's probably in their best 4 internationals. And Tim David, who's going to get $1 million US to go out there and score some quick runs in their middle. Losing Bumrah, of course, it's pretty hard to replace him. Regardless of it being white or red ball. They do have Jofra Archer. He's looking fit. He's looking healthy. I think I sent a picture to you boys. He's looking hot. Some might say looking hot. The question will be, is the rest of their bowling depth there? They don't have a big name spinner. I think Piyush Chawla, I think that's how you say it. He's a leg spinner. He's going to have to carry the load in terms of the spin stocks. I look at this team and it looks so lopsided. It looks like, the seesaw, one of the seesaws is fucking 2 foot in the ground. It's so heavy, it's so stacked. And then the other bit of the seesaw, it's light outside of Jofra Archer. Obviously, losing Bumrah sucks, but I can't see with this inexperienced bowling lineup, these guys going far. Our bookies have them equal second. Caveat, I think they've got 3 or 4 on about $7, but I don't see the Mumbai Indians making the top 4 this IPL. Jason Behrendorff is in this list, so it'd be interesting to see. Maybe baby AB misses out and Behrendorff comes in, gives you a left arm quick. He'd complement Archer pretty well there.
Yeah, a lot of success for his team in the Big Bash.
Well, you need to think about the Scorchers and WA and how well they've gone.
Some proven commodities there with Richardson as well. But again, with your internationals, very hard to have that lineup. But
it's a fun game, isn't it? A lot of it comes down to picking who the best 4 internationals is. You can see why they do it, and how good, Indian white ball cricket has, how much they've progressed really since the inception of the IPL and being quite stringent with rules like this. I agree. I just think whether or not it is Behrendorff and Archer or Ashad Khan and Archer, whoever gets the go, I just don't know if they've got the bowling stocks there to support such a stellar top order there.
Like we were saying before, it's one of those teams where you just have to rely on making bulk runs and just game manage the fielding bowling side
100%,
aspect of it.
100%. They might back themselves and just go, oh well, who gives a fuck if it's just Jofra and a bunch of young Indians, on fuck all money. If we've got the likes of Rohit and Ishan Kishan and Cam Green and Sky at the top of the order, come chase 240. Fuck yeah.
Well, I think that could be their game plan. We've got to score big with the guys there. If they get a run on them early, then they're going to be a team I think that struggles once you get through that top order. But
with that sort of team, would you rather be batting first or second?
Probably depends on the night and the situation.
What did we say? I think chasing's been the preference.
Definitely when they moved to the Emirates in the COVID years, for some reason I'm not sure if it was the heat or whatever.
Actually, didn't we see last year it was chasing was most dominant in the first half of the season, and then actually it switched in for the back half of the season where putting out a big score initially was easier to defend.
I don't know if we can do like for like from last year, because last year it was still a bit bubbly in terms of there was only sort of 3 or 4 grounds that they played, whereas this year it's full back open. Every team has their home games in their hometown, and the past few tournaments we take with a grain of salt, I suppose, in the way that we interpret those stats.
Yep, they've got 12 arenas that they're going to be playing at. Yeah,
Mumbai. The top end is unreal. The bottom end, maybe not household names, especially for us down under. It'll be interesting to see how they go. I've got them outside the top 4. Let's talk about the Punjab Kings. Their biggest news is Mayank Agarwal, who goes to Sunrisers Hyderabad, was their skipper last year. That means Shikhar Dhawan will be the skipper this year. And poor Johnny Bairstow, he's still no good after breaking his leg playing golf. I don't know how you break your leg playing golf. Maybe you play a really bad shot and kick the shit out of the tee box or something. I'm not sure. Maybe. But he's still no good. It does open the doors for a few Aussies, whether or not Matt Short becomes his direct replacement. We saw how good he was in the Big Bash this year, or maybe Nathan Ellis might get a bowling gig, given that's one international that won't be playing for him. Anil Kumble is their coach. Again, very strong top order, bolstered by Shikhar Dhawan. Shahrukh Khan, it's going to be a bit of a prove it year. He's on $1 million US. Didn't really play that well last tournament. He's got a lot to prove. But then you've got essentially 2 of the 3 best English players in the game in Liam Livingston and Sam Curran in that middle order. I think they'll provide a bunch of runs and keep it reasonably tidy with the ball. Kasego Rabada comes across for about $1 million. Rahul Chahar has been quite good with the ball. Arshdeep Singh also quite good with the ball. Great name. Gonna be interesting to see how they go. Given, I think again, not a whole lot of parity in terms of that top order compared to the bottom order. They also there's a big question mark around the amount of money that they left unspent. I think they left something like $10 million not spent in the auction. I don't know if they were just waiting for their man and didn't quite get him. I don't see these guys being a top 4 team. Our bookies have them at 9-1.
Just reading up here, so it does look like Matty Short has been named replacement for Bairstow.
It's not bad.
So. Good on him. Let's go.
Yeah,
he's
great for him.
He's played so well in the Big Bash in the last 2 seasons. Probably a little bit unfamiliar for internationals, given he hasn't played for Australia just yet. So that's a big opportunity for him to go out there and score some runs.
It's one of those guys that's had so many good players playing in front of him at the top of the order. It's very hard to get an opening gig in the Australian squad, but he's definitely been playing very, very well. And him and Matthew Wade kind of combined for a very dominant team down there at the Hurricanes. Yeah. So, I can definitely see him coming out and having a real good crack for them. So, maybe not Johnny Bairstow levels, but he's going to probably cover that 80%, I'd say.
Let's talk about the Rajasthan Royals. I didn't get a good roll on my R there, but they did finish second, the boys in pink, last year. The big sort of talking point for them is the injury to Prasidh Krishna. There's a few teams that are missing essentially their front line quick. If it's an Indian quick, it hurts even more because
forces you to have more internationals in
exactly.
instead of your sticks.
Exactly right. They do have a very handy Indian stick in the name of Yashasvi Jaiswal. He's 21-year-old lefty. I believe is the youngest player ever to score a double ton in List A cricket, so domestic one-dayers. Pretty freakish achievement, let alone at the ripe age of 21. And last year it was the Joss Buttler show. He finished with 863 runs. That was over 240 more than KL Rahul in second. He single-handedly won this team games and was the main reason that they played so well. He's $1.2 million. He's an absolute steal for that price. Yeah. The top order isn't too bad. We just spoke about the young fella Jaiswal. I think he probably gets a gig. They do have Devdutt Padikkal, depending on the way their internationals line up. Jaiswal might actually push him out of the best 11. Sanju Samson is the skipper. Shimron Hetmeyer, big heady. The big West Indian will come into that middle order, which also features Jason Holder and Ryan Parag. And then I think the best spinning combination in the IPL with Ravi Ashwin and Yuzi Chahal. Krishna will be out, most likely Navdeep Saini and maybe Obed McCoy, depending on internationals, will come in. And they got Trent Bolt in there on $1 million. He'll be a staple for sure.
Yeah, they got some interesting internationals there. Like, you can't get Joe Root in the team. And
I don't think outside of big injuries, Joe Root will be in that team.
Yeah, and Adam
Zampa.
Zampa's the same. It's very unlikely you're going to have the Australian spinner come in and take a job from one of the locals in these conditions. So then again, he did a pretty good job the other night. So
he's an excellent spinner. He might be the best spinner in the IPL that's not going to get regular games.
Yeah. But he's definitely good depth there if they do want to change up their internationals at all.
My only concern around this team is if Butler doesn't fire, who's their next best up? Monks, if you wouldn't mind going back to 2022 and just scrolling down, who's the next Rajasthan Royal to feature in that list? Sanju Samson.
Yeah.
Sanju Samson wasn't bad, although you look at the games, he played 17, he made 458, he averaged 28.
It's half of what Butler did.
Exactly. And then outside of the both of them, Padikkal probably a little bit lackluster. Hetty needs to step up. He was a bit of a finisher last year and didn't get out a whole lot. That's probably my only concern is if Joss doesn't make runs, how do these guys go? Having said that, I still think they're a top 4 team. Our bookies have them at about 7-1. I'd be surprised if these guys missed out. Royal Challengers Bangalore, one of the big clubs over there in the IPL. They finished 3rd last year, perennially good, but not a lot of trophies to their names. Will Jacks was a big signing for them, although he will miss I think the entire tournament. So unfortunate for the young Englishman there. This top order is very interesting to talk about. Some of the biggest names to ever play white ball cricket.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this in the past. These three, not just going into this season, but last season, the season before, like they've been the big 3 for this team, to use a basketball reference there, and they kind of just haven't been able to put it all together as a team and actually win a comp in that. But when you start talking about Faf, Kohli, and Maxwell, you've got some of the best hitters out there, and then they just, I guess, need a team around them to help them finish off, and maybe they've got it now.
I think their bowling is the best that it's ever been. Hazelwood really stepped up last year, was the best Australian quick in the IPL. Hasaranga is one of the best spinners getting around. Mo Siraj and Harshal Patel on home soil, they're going to be good. I like what RCB is doing here. My concern is the ageing nature of that big 3 in Faf, Virat and Maxi. Virat, we speak about it all the time on this podcast, how he's been in sort of a form slump of late. Can he bounce back and find that old Virat form? Faf was pretty good last year. Can he back that up? I think he's 38 this year. And
seventh.
And Maxi.
Scroll, where did Maxi end up? I think, did Maxi miss the start of the... I felt like he missed a bunch of games last year.
Might have.
He did. He's coming back from that broken leg as well.
Yeah.
This
Maxi
time round.
13.
Yeah,
So,
the unders for him.
So he's going to have the old proverbial monkey on the back. You look at name value, and they're right up there with some of the best.
On paper, yeah, definitely.
I do have a concern around their lack of Indian depth as well. So you look at the guys that may come into this team. Finn Allen, we saw what he can do in the T20 World Cup when he destroyed the Aussie opening attack. Michael Bracewell, they're both Kiwis. They've got Topley and David Willey, who are both Poms.
Yep.
It's really important to have Indian depth in the IPL, and maybe that's something that they lack a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that.
Having said that, I don't see them as a bottom tier side by any means. I just don't know if they're a top tier side. I think they'll be pushing that top four. I think much in the same vein as I had Lucknow, not really wanting to put the nuts on the table and say for certain that they'll be a top four side. I think they'll be sort of there or thereabouts.
Yeah, they need those big three to fire and for their bowling to keep them in the games.
The last team that we need to talk about is Sunrisers. Hyderabad finished 8th last year. Brian Lara comes in to replace Aussie Tom Moody as the coach. Mayank Agarwal is the big signing, comes in to replace Kane Williamson, who goes to Gujarat. And the big talking point is the hottest name in cricket right now, the best test batsman since Don Bradman as it stands, Harry Brook. He's coming in there. He's going to be the youngest starter in this team Sundar's quite young. He'll be one of the younger, but he's going to be getting paid twice as much as anyone else in that team. It's a lot of pressure for the young bloke. How does he handle it?
Yeah, definitely. And just looking down that list, and I think you've got the note there that probably outside of Brook, they kind of lack the true superstars or a group of superstars like we talked about a lot of the other teams that we have. Usually it's around their international as well. They'll have three guys or two or three guys that you're like, hey, they're their leaders, they're their superstars they've brought in to be the face of franchise. But you've got Harry Brook, who to be his first IPL, and outside of that, Washington Sundar's probably the most well known I can see in that list.
Outside of Agarwal,
Rahul
Tripathi as well makes a bit of money, and the skipper Aidan Markram. But I agree 100%. It's not like a team that's really headlined by a Rohit Sharma or a KL Rahul or a Virat Kohli in terms of really proven IPL stalwarts.
Yeah, Jansen's an interesting one for them, the big fella. But I don't know. I think for them, they're well-rounded. They could be a solid team, and maybe that's where they differ from the others. Where the others, like we've talked about, have the seesaw, where they might be heavily one side or the other, then really need to rely on those guys to win games. Whereas maybe that's the difference here because Sunrisers, they're a bit more even across the field, and they have to play more of a team cricket style, and where everyone will just do their job, and that might win them enough games to potentially sneak into the four. But that's where I feel they are. They'd be a team that either sneaks in or towards the bottom there, and I think you've got them as bottom two.
It's hard because, like you say, there's no one in that starting 11 who's a bad cricketer.
Yeah.
But, maybe they do lack that real superstar. And time will tell. Can Harry Brook just go out there in his...
If he turns up every game, it doesn't matter. So.
And look, the way that he's been playing, it wouldn't really surprise me if Harry Brook goes out there and takes this tournament by the scruff of the neck. Realistically, I just don't see them being a top four side. I do have them towards the bottom. Another interesting point in terms of their balance of internationals, they've got Adil Rashid, one of the best white ball bowlers in the world. Can he bust into their best four internationals? It probably would be for Marco Jansen, given their other keeper would be Henrik Klaasen for Glenn Phillips. So they don't really have an Indian keeper, I don't think. That wraps up the IPL chat. In summation, it's going to be a massive year for these guys who are on big money. Cam Green for the Aussies, he's the highest paid Aussie. He's not proven by any means when it comes to T20 cricket. How does he fare? How does Harry Brook go, the hottest man in international cricket at the moment? I'm looking forward to it, boys. It's at a shit time, for us. Most of the games are midnight. But it is the premier cricket tournament in the world, and it really fills in this nice void nicely until the World Test Championship and the Ashes come our winter.